What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to TTP Ravens Media, bringing you Ravens content every single day. If you want to see that daily Ravens content, make sure to hit the subscribe button down below. In this video today, I'm talking about the Ravens re-signing Kristian Welch, and I'm talking about the Ravens linebacking core. Okay, so the news came out, and I was like, let's talk about the Ravens linebackers. Do they need more depth? What do they need to do? Should they look in the draft? Are there potential free agents? That sort of thing. So let me know in the comment section down below your thoughts on the Ravens linebackers. Let me know your thoughts on Kristian Welch. This isn't an overwhelming signing. This isn't major news. But we re-signed him, and I think he's a somewhat valuable piece of the team. So I figured, hey, let's give him some flowers. Let's talk about him a little bit, and let's talk about his position group. I don't know why my dog's going crazy. It's actually kind of annoying. But first off, with Kristian Welch, re-signed for a one-year deal. He's played with the Ravens the last 3 seasons. I think he's a solid linebacker, and he's good. He's decent on special teams, and that's really what he's here for. And I think a lot of people look at undrafted free agent linebackers. They look at signed free agent linebackers, whether it's Vetmans and things like that, or they look at a lot of these players in the NFL, and they want them to be stars. Not everyone's going to be a star, and that's okay. And I think that that's something that too many people are looking for from every draft pick, from every signing. I mean, like, if a 7th round pick, if a 6th round pick, if a 3rd round pick turns into a competent special teams player or a competent, in the NBA, role player is typically the term. NFL, it's kind of difficult to call someone a role player, but that's basically what they are. And Kristian Welch, I think, is a solid role player in the sense that he can play special teams. He's been with the Ravens organization. He's been with Mike McDonald now for over a year, and having someone in that locker room that's, kind of knows the guys, I think is valuable. Because if something were to happen to Roquan, to Patrick Queen, we would need somebody that could step up and be that next backup, because I think Malik Harrison would then step in as the linebacker 2 behind those guys. And it's like, okay, I'm okay with Kristian Welch being that, that 4th guy. And there's other players on the Ravens roster that can step up. I think Josh Ross is the one that people bring up a lot. And Josh Ross, again, is another one of those players where I like him in the organization. I like him as a player. I like him as what he is, which is, again, a role player. And that's okay. So with this signing, I think it's a good signing. I think it makes sense. The numbers don't really matter. It's going to be for a very low deal. The Ravens have the money to be able to sign a player like Kristian Welch, so don't worry about that. But the other thing is, do they still need a linebacker in terms of depth? And I wanted to talk about a couple of the free agency linebackers that are available. Bud Dupree, Leonard Floyd, Zach Cunningham, Deion Jones, Miles Jack, Marcus Gold, Melvin Ingram, Damian Wilson, Kevin Pierre-Louis, Corey Littleton, Kyle Van Noy, Anthony Barr, Neville Hewitt, Nick Vigil, Rashaan Evans. Those are the most of the players that I would think most of you guys have heard. John Bostich. He might have been signed, but Spot Trek has him as a free agent right now. But those are all players where I think are competent guys. And obviously the better names that I named on there are going to be more difficult to sign. Like, we're not going after Miles Jack. We're not going after Deion Jones. We're not going after Zach Cunningham or Bud Dupree or Leonard Floyd. But those other guys, maybe the Ravens could go after them. But at the same time, I don't think we need to. I think if the Ravens are looking to do something at the linebacker position, it's not going to be going out and signing someone, because, again, we would be signing them to designate them as special teams players and role players. And that's not something that we are going to have to do. And that's not something the Ravens want to waste their money on. If you want someone to become a special teams player, I believe the best way to do it is to draft them and have them take up that role. Because while they're taking up that role, you're developing their game. So potentially they could be a starter at that position rather than being on special teams. So maybe it's a wide receiver, running back, cornerback, linebacker, fullback. What you can do with a tight end as well, what you can do with them is you draft them. For example, I think Justice Hill is a great example. Draft him. Okay. He's not going to be starting running back, but hey, let's throw him at special teams. And all of a sudden he carves out a role. And with that role, it it gives the Ravens an option where, okay, if he gets good enough at running back, we can transfer him over there. But if not, now we have a really good special teams player. Because let's be honest, if you're getting drafted into the NFL, you most likely weren't playing special teams in college. In playing special teams in terms of being a gunner. Now, maybe freshman year, maybe sophomore year in college, you were, but you're not being drafted as a special teams gunner. I think that would be extremely rare for a team to draft a guy and be like, this is our gunner. Maybe it happens. I feel like Bill Belichick would do something like that. Like he's got a mind like that where he's really looking for him. But I think philosophically, drafting someone and developing them as their positional player, as they're in their position as a offensive or defensive player, while having them play special teams in the meantime is the best way of going about your special teams, because you either end up with a really good special teams player or someone that develops into a very good offensive or defensive player. I think the best example, by far the best example of this, is Tyreek Hill. Tyreek Hill, I'm not going to lie, he could have, I don't want to say easily, but he very well could have been the greatest kick returner and punt returner in history. I fully believe that. I think he could have been better than Hester. But the Chiefs, what they did was they were like, okay, he's young, he's fast, let's get him on special teams, let's develop him as a wide receiver. And he started to become more of a gadget guy, and he got more and more involved. And then they were like, okay, this guy's now legit at wide receiver. We're going to take him off special teams and have him be wide receiver 1. That is the prime example of turning a guy from special teams into, into that wide receiver or 1 or cornerback 1 and things like that. Because if you look at a lot of the best receivers in the NFL over the last 15 years, a lot of them, not all of them, they played special teams at one point. Odell was returning kicks for the Giants. And then they were like, okay, yeah, let's get him off of that. Dez Bryant returned kicks. Antonio Brown returned kicks. They just want to get you on the field, no matter how it is. And then as you develop, then they'll start getting you into that starter. And Kristian Welch, I think, is at a point where it's like, okay, doesn't look like he'll ever become the starter, but he could be a decent special teams piece, which again is totally fine. Having competent special teams is what separates the Ravens from so many other teams. I know a lot of Ravens fans only watch Ravens football, and that's fine. That is completely fine. I'm not going to fault you for that. But if you're a Ravens fan and you typically only watch Ravens games, and you happen to be like, oh man, I'm free this Sunday night, I'm watching Sunday Night Football, and you're watching, maybe it's the Chargers and they're playing against the Raiders. Watch the special teams. Just watch them. Because they're never as good as the Ravens. They're never as good, unless it's the Patriots. Because there's such a focus, and you have to give John Harbaugh credit. There's such a focus on special teams, and it's like it's night and day with these teams, because like the mistakes that you see, whether it's bad snap on a punt or a field goal, or a bad blocking assignment, or just bad coverage or bad blocking, it's unreal. And the reason I think the Ravens have been so good at all of these special teams advancements is the way that they utilize these undrafted players like Kristian Welch, where they draft them, or don't draft them, they sign them after the draft, and they say like, and they get on the roster. And how do you get on the roster is they battled their tail off to be able to be this special teams piece. And they know if they want to have a chance of becoming a starter, whether it's linebacker, corner, wide receiver, running back, safety, whatever, they have to prove their worth of just being on the roster and hopefully develop into what the Ravens need. But I promise you, if you are a good special teams player in the NFL, you will have a job. Look at Justice Hill. Yeah, I think he's the perfect example. I don't think he's a good running back. If he was just a running back, he would not be in the league at all. But the Ravens re-signed him. Why? To play special teams. Look at Chris Moore. Chris Moore is not a good wide receiver. Wouldn't be in the league. What is he, though? Very good special teams player. Let me know in the comment section down below your guys' thoughts on the kind of the middle linebacker position. If you want to give your thoughts on Kristian Welch, go ahead. Totally fine. Again, this wasn't like necessarily only about Kristian Welch. I just wanted to talk about that signing, a little bit about, expectations, and then the linebacker core. So for me, I don't think we need big additions to the linebacker group. I think we're set. I think we're paying Roquan a ton of money. We have Patrick Queen. If we draft someone in the 6th round, that's fine. I'm not going to fault it. But again, that would be drafting to play special teams initially. And maybe if we move on from Patrick Queen, they could have developed and stepped up. But that's to be determined. We'll see what happens in the draft. But thank you all for watching. Subscribe for daily content, and I'll see all of you again tomorrow.